We are going to go ahead and discuss the game One-Eyed Likho. Going to go ahead and give my review. That is indeed the end. So just to summarize, basically, I'll give you guys an idea of what we're dealing with here. One-Eyed Likho, solo dev game based in Russian, like Russian folklore. A particular story involving basically a cyclops, however you want to look at it. They basically explain throughout the game that it's various versions of the story of the cyclops. And in Russian folklore, it's Likho, essentially. So from start to finish, obviously, the game was kind of a walking sim with some stealth elements and some horror elements as well. There wasn't a whole lot of either. Most of the game was designed to basically introduce you to the lore of the game, and lore of this the folklore, literal lore about that. That's basically the main backstory of the game. Here's what I liked about the game. I think the game was interesting in style. I think it had some cool visual imagery. I think I liked the lore. I like how deep-rooted it is, and I do definitely like how like there was different elements from different games. Like I like the puzzle elements, you know, having little things to pick up along the way. Obviously there's going to be more collectibles that we might have missed, all the things we had to pick up, and like the puzzles were there. They were a little cryptic at times, but nothing crazy, honestly. Sometimes it was just like that apple one we got trolled with. I completely misunderstood it, but for the most part, those were kind of that was basically that most of the puzzles were done with those collectibles. But there were some main objectives that we had to complete using just basic thought process. I don't think I really got into... I didn't really struggle too much with any of those things, to be honest. I think it was... I pretty much solved them right away. So it was pretty easy to keep going through the game, not really get stuck on anything. I'm not saying being easy is a positive necessarily, but... it wasn't that confusing. We could keep going from point A to B, and despite being in a completely different language, using subtitles, it was pretty easy to follow along with the game and understand what was actually going on, and you kind of were able to fill in the blanks with yourself, you know what I mean? I feel like based on what you're seeing, you can comprehend it. By the end of the game, we kind of understood what they were trying to say through each of the, what they were trying to say through each of the, the books we picked up, the stories, and how they they factored into Smith's version of the tale, essentially. So like I said, interesting storyline, pretty easy to follow along. Puzzles weren't too cryptic, even though they did stumble us a couple of times, and obviously the visual imagery was pretty cool. I'd say where the game that was a little bit, some of the negative things of the game, it was a little bit slower paced at times. Sometimes there was like, I feel like you were kind of repeating the different steps like over and over, obviously reading the same lore in different ways. I'm like, I don't know how many times I read, I know they were collectibles, they're optional, you don't have to read them, but when you think about it, you're reading the same thing just in a different, like with a different country of origins version of that same story. I get it, after a while you're like, okay, it's a little repetitive, it's being shoved down our throat. The game wasn't that long. It was about, it took me a little over 4 hours. Probably would have taken me less than that. If you're not stopping to read anything at all, I bet you can beat this in half of that, maybe in like 2 hours, 2.5 hours or something like that. The length isn't really there. And I know you're probably thinking, Dan, it's a one dev game, so solo dev game. But the thing is, it does have a $20 price tag, at least Canadian. And again, when you look at it like that, I'm going to compare it to a game that I played recently, which was Ludo. And that game took us, I think, about 6 hours or so, or roughly around 6 hours, I think. I got to double check. It was about 6 hours, and that game had so much love and compassion and like, not compassion, but it's so much love and care put into the game, and there was so many things, and I felt like when I'm paying $15 US for it or whatever, it might have even been $15 Canadian. I just feel like the value was better there, and it seemed more original and more interesting than this game was. This one was feeling more single-faceted. It was very obvious where you had to go. Yes, there were some, you could veer off and look at some other stuff, but for the most part, it felt like this game needed to be longer. You know what I mean? It felt like there needed to be more there, but because you're confined to like being a solo dev, there's just only so much you can actually do. So I felt like it had to be condensed, and it did take a bit of an L for that. And obviously the gameplay is not that special. Yes, there were some moments where we were running from Likho, or we had to hide from Likho, And I will say the hiding moment's really easy to get through, but those sequences when you actually had to run and she was on your tail close, well, I guess I can literally count on a single finger when that actually happened, and it did actually scare me, and that was like, okay, that was cool. So this game is advertised as a horror, like, exploration kind of a game, a horror adventure game with puzzle elements. Yes, I'd say it does have horror elements, but I wouldn't say the genre is horror. I don't think so. It just doesn't have enough horror in it. Maybe the fairy tale, the story of the fairy tale, the folklore, is kind of the scary thing in itself. It's kind of like that scary story you tell, you know, kids to, you know, to make them act right, you know what I mean? It's got that kind of a vibe, but it doesn't really scare you that much. I feel like Likho as a concept, if you look at the imagery of Likho, it's not that scary. Maybe in how she moves when she's chasing you, it's all kind of gyratey and whatever, and that's kind of creepy, but for the most part it is kind of remedial at times, so it's not really blowing your mind, it's not scaring the hell out of you. And I feel like if you're going to advertise it as a horror game, you really got to make sure you bring more horror, because there really wasn't any horror vibes for me, just in the fact that something was chasing me in a couple of times. Like, I don't know, that literally only happened a couple of times, and before you know it, you're wrapping up the game. So yeah, I definitely wouldn't call this a horror game, but I would call it a puzzle game. Even then, I wouldn't even know what I would call it a puzzle game, because that's not the root of it. It's definitely a walking sim with horror and puzzle elements. That's the best way I could say it, and I just don't think it's super impressive, but I do believe it's got potential. I just think the price tag needs to drop a little bit, based on, like, again, I know this was a game of love, you can tell, but I know there's replay value in the sense, like, if you miss stuff, I like that they introduced a chapter select so you can actually track what you missed, but there's also collectibles that aren't being tracked that way, like those little skeleton things. Skeleton babushkas, not babushkas, but you know what I'm talking about. You know, the things that go inside each other? You know, those little Russian doll things? Yeah, you have to get rid of a bunch of those. I don't even think those are going to appear in there, and you're going to have to find them either way. But again, there is replay value in that, but the game could be beat 100% in one run. Like, you can get all the achievements and do everything 100% in one run if you know where they all are. So nothing too crazy. I would probably say this game needs to come down maybe about $5 to $10, and I'd say that's where the price point really stands true, but not a bad experience overall. I still enjoyed it, but based on these things, you know, obviously, just quickly summarize everything. Game had a cool environment, cool story. I like the concept of the game. I like the black and white kind of idea. It sets the mood. It's very moody, and it obviously gave me a look at some folklore from a completely different area that I'm not too familiar with, and it really does, like, do well to maintain that storyline and actually stay true to its roots and what it's actually about. So I do like that, and I do like that there were the puzzles weren't too crazy cryptic, even though they were pretty simplified at some times. I still think it was decently well done for, like I said, an accessory to it. But like I said, the game is awfully short, and I feel like the storyline does get a little repetitive, especially when you're picking up most of these readables, which are basically repeated over and over and over, and you're reading a lot of this game was spent me reading. I want to say probably about an hour was me reading just in this entire run. So when you look at it that way, there's not as much gameplay here as you'd think. So, and I think the price doesn't really reflect that because of it, but still interesting nonetheless, and I'd say it was pretty cool to at least try out. And not the most expensive thing in the world, but again, for what you're getting, I do feel like it needs to be a little bit cheaper before I can recommend it. So with all those things in mind, I think I'm going to give this game a 6 out of 10. I think that's fair. It's not like an average run-of-the-mill game. It's got some uniqueness to it that keeps it above that. And there obviously is some replay value in the sense that, you know, you can go back and get collectibles, and there's lots of lore. So if you're really into this sort of storyline, you can find out a lot about it. And that's what they want you to do, is understand the lore of this folklore tale. And you can tell dude is passionate about it, and I think that's where it gets some bonus points. So 6 out of 10 for me. I think that's fair. All right. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, be sure to leave a like, comment your thoughts below, subscribe if you're new, and turn on those post notifications with the bell icon so you don't miss anything I put out here on the channel. Be sure to like and follow my social pages as well. Facebook, X, Instagram, Snapchat, Discord. Those are linked in the description. If you want to get yourself a shirt or a hoodie of mine, there's a link in the description below. Also a section below the stream. You can see that. It shows a preview. Ultimately, just go to the website for the full range of products and customization options there. Big shout out to the sponsors: DX Racer, Bones Coffee, The Ridge Wallet, Matter Ever Tattoo, Jinx Custom Controllers. I use their products daily. You can check them out for yourselves with the links in the description. Make sure you use my promo code DANQ8000 to save at checkout with them. If you guys want to send something to my P.O. box, there is a address to that in the description. description as well. I will open whatever's sent there on a social post or on a live stream, whatever makes more sense at what's sent at that particular time. Finally, be sure to check out and sign up for the Team 1000 membership program if you haven't done so yet. It does support the page immensely. There's 4 tiers, 4 price points, entry levels just 99 cents, so it's cheap and easy to get into the program. For signing up across those tiers, you'll get things like custom badges by your name, custom emojis used in chat, exclusive video and stream access, priority and open lobbies, giveaways, discounts, and plenty more. Working our way through the 200s once again. I'd love to hit 300 again if you guys want to help us get there. Support the channel in the process, and of course, get some cool perks in that time, or while you're, for signing up. You can join that with the link in the description. There's a join button below the stream. Also a section on my main channel page as well. If you guys want to gift members or send supers, you can do both of those through the $ icon right next to chat. Click it, you'll see those options. If you are gifting members, you can gift anywhere from 1 to 50 in a single transaction, but ultimately you can gift as many as you want through multiple transactions, okay? Thank you guys so much again. Have a great rest of your day, and hopefully we catch you in the next one, all right? See you guys then. Have a good one. Take care. Peace.
Who the man with the plan? If you feel trouble wildin' wild on these violent and hit you 8,000. Wait a minute, hold that style is dialed in. Goddamn Billy Jack, we still riding tires flat. I hear them sirens, see shots flying, so we driving fire back. If they ain't vibing, lie with that. Got me dressed up in all black. What up? Hood up, and I see them haters try to run with us. They gon' need inhalers. Gotta breathe them hard just like Darth Vader. Players, grab your respirators. Night invaders get lightsabered. Mask on for the shooters, move like trash to bed intruder. Got that Glock and got them woofers. Just press play, I'll keep it moving. Who is not still, you damn fools? Keep it fresh like canned food. There ain't nothing we can't do, so tune into that damn Q. Yeah. It was never, ever a game.